Welcome to SRS Menu and Process Review. In this module, we will look at how to review the menu in your SRS, how to modify recipes, and we'll provide you with some handy resources and tips that can help you with these two tasks. So, how do we go about reviewing our menus and modifying our recipes? Well, our main point of reference should be the Australian Dietary Guidelines. The Australian Dietary Guidelines provide evidence-based recommendations on eating for health and well-being and chronic disease prevention. According to these guidelines, one thing to consider when reviewing your menu is the proportion of food groups. Now let's look at the different food groups there are. On one hand, we have the foods that we should eat every day. They are called the core food groups, and there's 5 of them, as you can see on the screen. On the other hand, there are foods that we should eat only occasionally. These are known as discretionary foods, and here are some examples. Now, let's see an example of a menu from an SRS. From the items shown below the menu, see if you can correctly identify the discretionary foods. So, how did you go? As you can see, of the 6 items, 3 were from the discretionary foods group. In a typical week, you may notice that these foods appear several times. Ensuring this group is limited in the menu is important. We want to aim for 1 to 2 discretionary items per week, and where it's appearing more frequently, look to replace these items with foods from the core food groups. One simple step you can take to improve your menu is to find out the proportion of discretionary items. If, like in the example, you are offering more than 2 of them per week, you will be making a big improvement by just replacing these discretionary foods with healthier options. Now let's look at a useful tool you can use to take your menu review to the next level. What you see on the screen is a tool that can help you review your own menu, just as a dietitian would do. This tool will enable you to identify areas for change and address any issues as they arise. As the video progresses, we will be showing you only some examples of how to use this tool, but we encourage you to download a free copy of it from the Merri Health website so you can see all the items it has. We are now going to look at some of the sections that make up this tool. Let's start with meal composition. This section looks at what goes on the plate, including the amounts of vegetables compared with proteins and carbohydrates. An easier way to see this is if we use this picture. What this graphic is meant to remind us of is that when you look at the meals you are serving, you'll need to ask yourself 4 questions. Question number 1. Is half of the meal made up of vegetables? A good way to check is by looking at all of the ingredients in front of you as you lay them out on the kitchen bench. Half of these should always be vegetables. The second question you need to ask yourself: are starchy foods, like rice, potatoes or sweet potatoes, limited to 1/4 of the meal? Third question: when other starchy foods are served, is bread freely available or available on request only? The rule of thumb is, if you serve pasta, rice, potatoes, or any other starchy foods, you don't put bread on the table. If residents request it, you still provide it, but the key point here is not to make it so easily available. And the last question: are lean proteins, such as beef, chicken, fish, and eggs, limited to 1/4 of the meal? This is something you should observe during meal service. It is important that there is consistency in the way the staff at the SRS plate the meals being served to residents. If you want to find out more about these different food groups, you can refer to the Food Groups Guide on the Merri Health website. But for now, we'll stay focused on the menu review tool. Let's see another section of it. What you see on the screen is the part of the tool that refers to food provision. While in the previous part we were looking at individual meal composition, here we look at the overall composition of your menu for each week, just as we did before in the exercise on discretionary foods. Let's look at this item. Say you serve sugar buns for morning and afternoon tea every day. It would mean that you don't meet this target, so you would draw a cross. Then you would briefly write a comment, such as, "Sugar buns every day need a better alternative." At the end of your review, you will end up with a few crosses and hopefully many ticks. The question is, what do you do with the crosses? Often you'll be able to make improvements yourself, but if for some reason you needed a hand, you can tick the option of Request Help from Merri Health Supporting Connections at the bottom of this page. Your Supporting Connections worker will put you in contact with a local dietitian and bring the assistance you might need. By now, you will have a fairly good idea of the purpose of this tool and how to use it. So it's time to move on to recipe modification. Recipes are an important resource for many reasons. They should be used when planning the grocery shopping to ensure ingredients are purchased in adequate amounts to meet your needs. They help to provide consistency between staff members to meal preparation methods and are an important resource for staff who do not usually work in the kitchen should they need to fill in for any reason. When it comes to recipes, it is common for people to spend forever searching for the perfect option. Instead, knowing a few principles on how to modify an existing recipe will give you greater flexibility, allowing you to use any base recipe available. So here they are, the top 5 tips for recipe modification. Number 1, grated is great. To increase the amount of vegetables in a meal, add grated vegetables to the protein component where possible, such as a bolognese sauce or burger patties, and make sure there is enough for half a plate of salad or cooked vegetables on the side. Number 2, reason with season. Using seasonal vegetables will keep costs down, so don't be afraid to substitute out-of-season vegetables for cheaper in-season varieties. Number 3, go rainbow. Make sure there is plenty of colour. Different coloured vegetables provide different nutrients, so make sure you include a rainbow of options in most of your meals. Number 4, keep the bad guys out. Trim all visible fat from meat and remove the skin from chicken prior to cooking. Substitute high-fat ingredients, such as hard cheeses, for lower-fat alternatives. This helps to reduce the energy content and saturated fat intake. Number 5, load up with legumes. Lentils and beans, such as red kidney beans, are a great source of non-animal protein. They can be used in combination with other proteins and may help to reduce the amount of meat required, reducing overall food costs. We have almost arrived at the end of our video on menu and process review. Before we finish, let's see how well you've remembered the key topics we've presented. On the screen, you will see a few sentences where words are missing. Try to guess what those words are and then check if you were right. Good luck. Please contact Merri Health's SRS support program if you have any questions. Thank you for watching this video.